Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Infotech Research Group's ongoing series into the AI market landscape. I'm Thomas Randall, an analyst here at Infotech. Delighted today to have David Curtis, Chief Technology Officer at RobobAI, to discuss with me how AI is used for supply chain intelligence. Dave, it's such a pleasure to speak with you. Would you like to give a quick introduction for the audience?
Yeah, hi Thomas. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here. So yeah, my name is Dave Curtis. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at RobobAI. I basically look after all of our product teams, product roadmap, anything related to tech in the business, and our sort of day-to-day operations around tech and security. So yeah, I've been with the company about a little bit over 4 years now. And sort of came into the role to help sort of structure and I guess take us to that next level, in terms of sort of product and also managing sort of product roadmap on behalf of the business.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time coming on to
You're
speak
welcome.
with me. And perhaps just to start off with a bit about the value proposition of Robo AI. What's some of the challenges you see organizations have that Robo AI is looking to solve?
Right. Yeah. Good question. So I guess if I go back to the genesis of the company, 2017, probably the place to start. I guess, and it's probably helpful with the sort of companies that we work with, is a lot of companies, just rather surprisingly, very large companies that fall into the category of sort of spending hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on their supplies and services, have a very large difficulty in actually understanding the depth and detail inside that spend environment. So that can relate to the type of spend that they're making, where that spend is, the risk and also the risk associated with their supply chain as well. So it's a little bit like trying to sort of see the wood through the trees. And our founders at the time came from a sort of procurement background and noted that they thought they could create a product and a tool set that would allow us to surface those insights out of a plethora of data in a meaningful way that would allow companies to sort of get across the top of that and make meaningful decisions about how they spend. And as we'd say, it's about helping companies spend better, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. Yeah. So
Fantastic. And so in terms of the core use cases then that you see organizations utilize Robo AI for, are there certain ones that stand out, some high value ones, any similarities, or is it a mixed range of things?
right. Well, what I'll do is I've put a couple of just, I guess, placeholder slides here, which might be helpful just to give you a bit of a sense of what we do. And I'll sort of go into perhaps one slide, and let me know if you can see this okay. I can make it a bit bigger. There's quite a wide number of use cases, but it falls into a number of categories. So rather than looking at all the detail, and obviously people will, but going from the left to the right, it's about spend visibility. So it's about being able to actually quickly interrogate into your spend data, and we're working with companies that are sort of, say, have spend of 500 million up to some state governments that might be spending $15 billion across 5, 10, 15,000 suppliers per year. So you can imagine the level of data involved. So being able to actually see into that spend, see where there's duplicated spend, see where look at things like your payment analytics. How are you paying your suppliers? So we actually get involved in looking at the most optimal way to pay suppliers, to both give the supplier benefit, but also to help companies manage their cash environment as well. So what's things like working cost of capital. And that falls into things like payment card optimization, where we actually can sort of show people the opportunity sizing of moving from one payment method for a set of suppliers to another. Procurement management, sustainability and risk, which I touched on a little bit. So we actually bring third-party data in and overlay that, across. And so people actually want to be able to see from a use case point of view, where have I got risk in my supply chain for certain elements, things like modern slavery or sanctions, the financial health of a company, things like that. So and then other things related to running the business, such as contract management. Where have we got rogue spend in the business? Are things getting done against purchase orders, or are they not getting done? And quite surprisingly, and then again, this is part of, I guess, the genesis of it is, it came out of the back of, rather surprising that, large companies really struggle to get this with the tool sets that they've got. They may have this data across multiple platforms internally. The analytics that they can get internally just don't give them that consolidated view, and that's again was part of the value proposition, is that we can deliver these services to them and help them both sort of inject clean data and get these use cases up and running relatively quickly as well, compared to the sort of things they're doing.
That's wonderful, and a couple of benefits I think coming out of this, and you'll let me know if I'm on the right track, but obviously a clear one is it's unifying siloed data so that you can have business intelligence in one place, and from that you can get cost savings from looking at your supply chain across a range of different areas. Am I on the right track there? Other ways in which I should be thinking about the benefits?
No, you are. I mean, typically speaking, once we deliver the service, almost straight out of the gate, if people actually implement the insights that you can get out of the platform, just in spend visibility and procurement management, we would expect, a company to be able to get a 5 to 10% gain, in cost savings straight out of the gate. Just by things like consolidating, payment terms, consolidating duplicated suppliers. You may have 10 suppliers supplying all of the same thing, but you could actually get a better unit cost by consolidating down to a couple of suppliers potentially. You could get a benefit in your working capital by actually moving some suppliers that you might be paying on EFT, or wire type payment terms onto a virtual corporate credit card, and some of our channel partners help us provide or provide those type of capabilities. We are able to identify through the filtering and other mechanisms in the platform, the ability to identify where you can do that, and then what you end up doing is essentially as a benefit, keeping the cash in the bank longer, so your cash flow is better as well. So a range of benefits like that. Maybe being able to identify and talk to suppliers that you deem have a very high risk, sustainability or risk issue in a particular area. So again, being able to use the platform to filter out maybe elements of suppliers that are lower risk, because you don't spend a lot with them. You may be more interested, obviously, in somebody who's got a sanctions or a cyber risk if you're spending $200 million a year with a supplier, as opposed to one you're spending, $5,000 a year with. So there's a whole range of visibility and actionable benefits that you can get from it by doing that. That helps.
No, that's perfect. And I really appreciate you emphasizing the piece there, where certainly there's ROI there initially of 5-10%, say, as an example, from consolidated payments. But it's really interesting that, of course, it helps with all of your not just compliance, but the risk management of the supply chain as well. And so there's a whole range of different ways in which we could apply RobobAI, it seems like.
There certainly is. I mean, the platform as we have it is modular. Say the genesis of it was the spend visibility side of what we do, and quickly grew into these other areas, because once we realized we had access to quite a large data set, particularly around accounts payable, presented a lot of opportunities, both at the categorization level of a supplier, and the identification of benefits that would come out of that in terms of how you'd actually sort of manage those suppliers. But then obviously once we started overlaying other things like third-party data sets around sustainability and risk, just provided us the ability to offer customers additional areas. So it suits procurement teams. It might suit a treasury team, so people who are involved in capital management will have particular use cases that, and so those benefits are spread across a number of different areas for a company. And I guess probably, we sort of touched on it, but, one of the things that I've noted, particularly in talking to our customers, is that we're really good at, receiving, manipulating data, and getting this up and running quite quickly. So typically, most of these types of initiatives internally within large organizations will take months, if not years, to do. Once we have the data, we can typically turn around, a customer, depending on the size and scope of the data, within 5 to 10 days. So the other benefit is they get the visibility, and they get it very quickly, as well. And customers say that's just something that they would really struggle with, inside. So working with a supplier like RobobAI has really helps them in that regard.
Fantastic. And of course, the implementation time there in terms of milestones, we're looking at what's the usual time frame there? It sounds like it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, by 3 months at least we'd be up and running.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what we have is we have an ability to take a small data set. So if people just want to have the supplier summary, that we can take, a list of their suppliers, we can take it down to the invoice header, and then we can also take down to their line level data, which is where we do our AI machine learning classification, which is something I'll talk about as well. I mean, say my typical experience, across our teams is that we can implement, really between 2 to 4 weeks, at the outset. A lot of the work, I mean, is if the scope of the data is correct that we get from the customer, and the format that they've provided it to us matching our template is pretty close, then it's relatively short and sweet. To get it in, we can template. We have templated processes for adding additional data elements and insights based out of what they give us before we put them into our platform. But yes, if you compare that to what our customers tell us, which is, it would be many months to get this because of the nature of what we would have to do. We deliver much more quickly for them.
Yeah, brilliant. And of course, I think you said there was a range of different personas in an organization that could utilize the solution as well. So it sounds like, too, that in terms of the technical aspects here, that's it's fairly straightforward to use if you're a non-technical user. I don't know if that's a fair statement.
It is, yes. I mean, we present it as a set of application tiles and visualizations, and I'll quickly sort of give you a scan of the territory and how it works. But very easy. We provide a lot of dedicated training, and we have provided some in-application training. But each of the tiles, application tiles, largely relates to the elements that you see here in terms of the category of areas. So some customers may just want spend visibility. That might be their procurement teams. Others might sort of then move it to treasury. That will be things like payment analytics, payment card optimization. And then you may have a risk and compliance team, for example, that may want to actually pull and view things out of sustainability and risk, and vendor compliance, those type of things, we can do. And we have, our spend analytics platform is our sort of main offering as a platform, but we also have a sort of a much deeper compliance platform as well, which allows you as a customer to design and customize a set of questions, and then onboard suppliers to ask questions, upload documents, and then configure your own essentially supplier compliance, where you can actually, as an organization, decide what weightings that you want to put on compliance, to make sure that the suppliers that you're dealing with, meet the type of criteria that you would have as an organization. So if you weight financial risk higher than modern slavery or carbon, or then you can do that in the platform, and then provide a set of insights and the ability to sort of output reporting, from that as well. So yes, it does. It is a range of different users and personas in the platform for sure.
Yeah, but very good. I think we mentioned as well, there's a range of different types of organizations and in different sectors that could utilize the solution as well. Mm-hmm. Just wondering, are there any particular sectors that tend to stand out, or is it usually a mixed range as well?
It's quite a a range, actually, Thomas. We've dealt with companies like American Airlines, Coca-Cola, Amtil across a number of regions. We deal with a number of state governments here. So we deal with Victoria government. We deal with our Western Australia government. We deal with a lot of sort of manufacturing, graphics, packaging is a good example, which is a US-based company. So yeah, it's quite diverse, I would say, in terms of the areas that we work in. What we tend to do, and obviously as we see new industry sectors, gives us the opportunity also to broaden some of the capabilities in our AI and ML space. So that's something, again, we'll touch on when we talk about how we do one element of that. We do tend to deal with quite a wide array. Yeah, I would say.
That's great, and I think it's a good segue into that question on what type of AI is at play here, and I suppose
Fantastic.
What's the additional value that having this kind of AI provides that we couldn't get otherwise?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Great question. I'm gonna, and in the true style of skipping around a little bit, just go back to this, because it's just gives you a sort of a sense of the ecosystem. We've talked a little bit about some of these tools and platforms, but what we tend to do is obviously, we have built a series of, and this genesis does go back for us back to 2017, a series of AI ML models, particularly based around classification of data. And I'll touch on how the model works a little bit at a high level as well. But essentially, what that model consists of, is a range of capabilities that are used to classify the spend data. So typically for a customer, if we talk about your AP data there in the middle of that diagram, for some of the customers that I've talked about, we'll get something like 350 to 500,000 lines of invoice or accounts payable data on a periodic basis. So it might be monthly for some customers. Some of our state governments will give it to us quarterly. We essentially put that data through an engine. That engine basically classifies that spend, and you'll see there it says UNSPSC, which is United Nations spend and products and services categorization. So it's a taxonomy that's about something 150, 160,000 levels of coding. So we push it through that and then use that to actually then cluster and group suppliers by the type of spend. And you'll see a sort of a visualization of that in the platform. From a benefits point of view, I mean, it's essentially a multi-tag classification model. So it's quite large. It's been developed over the past 7 years. And it's the sort of thing, if you tried to do that by hand, would take months and months and months for an individual to do it. We can typically, through the model, push the sort of numbers that I'm talking about, in an hour or two, through the models that we've got. So we have an engine which across different instances can receive this spend description data and process it and then derive the spend categorization, out of it. So from an AI example point of view, and there are others in the business, but we talked about classification. So as I say, typically, what we typically find is, I guess, 300,000 to 500,000 lines of spend data represents about $1 billion of spend. In our platform today, we've got over $1 trillion of consolidated, categorized data, in our data lake. So when we started building this, essentially we realized, it's a complex problem. And part of the use of AI and machine learning solutions to it was that no one thing was going to do the job. So part of what we've done is built essentially a hierarchical model as part of our centralized engine that can ingest that data, quality check the data, and we do a level of clustering of that data. So we utilize techniques that actually removes things that are duplicates to reduce the amount of information that we process, and then essentially pass it through a subsequent set of models to determine a higher, a high confidence or a low confidence value on whether or not what somebody's trying to purchase in an invoice or in a purchase order actually is, the categorization we've got, we believe the model believes is correct. And so it's done in a particular order. We've got a series of things in there to achieve that outcome. One of them is essentially we actually offer in the tool what we call a customer feedback engine, which we call COTF, classification on the fly, which allows a customer to manually tag elements and correct things that the models encountered, which it thinks is maybe not quite correct, so that's incorporated into this flow for subsequent pieces of work. So as well as actually maintaining centralized models, we also actually have this that is unique to each customer, because each customer may have a unique coding system for how they classify spend. That our tool allows you to do that. We do semantic matching, so we're looking at the intent of the spend. So this is where we're using a number of modeling techniques to do that. We've built a number of specific UNSPSC and industry-specific models. So as we encounter a new industry, so aviation or packaging or logistics, we can actually, we'll sort of regularly update our industry models. We have vendor models, which are essentially suppliers themselves. So, as you're going through, if you can't, struggle to classify the data, you can classify something at a primary vendor level. And then we have some generic industry models. And the idea is that, the engine will classify every piece of data, and we'll typically find that we'll get a 50 to 70% accuracy level straight out of the gate with a brand new customer. So and then we can refine it from there. So the use of COTF or actually sort of further enhancements to industry models, will raise that accuracy level over time. A lot of our customers are going to get the benefit of around about 95% accuracy over time with our AI solution. And the benefit, as I say, is that it just removes a tremendous amount of manual work, and it allows you to very, very, at a finite level, focus in on you now know where that spend is actually going and being categorized. So this model is something that sort of sits behind, all of our customers that utilize the spend product.
Yeah, Dave, this is great, and I really appreciate the comments on the accuracy here as well, because a lot of InfoTech members, when they're talking about AI, want to know the solution and the output that they're receiving from it is accurate, that they can act on it with confidence, and especially with something like, as you say, with the spend and vendor management, we want it to be accurate. So over time, or at least even just getting started, accuracy is quite high. It looks like it reinforces as it goes down to a high confidence. And the models being used here, are they proprietary to the company? Or, yeah.
Proprietary models, yeah. We are exploring, the use of large language models and things like that. I mean, at the moment, we've sort of focused on UNSPSC, but we do actually support, remapping back to a customer's hierarchy as well. So whilst it says UNSPSC, we can model back to what we call a hybrid taxonomy. So if you want to represent that classification based on the way that you classify internally, this model also supports that as part of the configuration. But they are all bespoke models. So we manage all of this internally within our own environment, which also takes care of other concerns around data privacy, as well. So everything stays within our tenant. And we have teams of people that regularly, as you would expect to need to do, nothing is fixed. Everything needs to be maintained and managed over time, and that goes for all of these boxes. Teams that will constantly update as we encounter new areas. But yes, it's all hybrid.
Wonderful. And it'd be great, Dave, if it's appropriate to perhaps see some of the interface of the solution
absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, let me do that. So I will just give you a link to the platform itself. Okay. So hopefully you can see this. This is the home screen of our spend analytics platform, and as you'll see that the categorization of application tiles relates to what you saw on the diagram. I'll talk a little bit about spend visibility initially, but as you can see, it's presented as a graphical, reporting visual insights platform. We always utilize, and part of the benefit of it is the ability to do filtering, within the platform. The filtering covers quite a wide array of elements, and I can show a few of those. But ultimately, as you can see, and this is our demo platform, that you immediately get some insights around things like your total spend, how many suppliers that you've got, and the number of lines. And this basically relates to the number of transaction lines that the system is currently seeing in the platform. So, and then out of that, the other things that we can pull based on what is contained in the data. So, what is considered direct or indirect spend? Direct being spend that is directly is used to build your own products and services as the customer, as the buyer, versus indirect spend. In scope and out of scope of things like contract. So you begin to see where that rogue spend is. And where is the spend that you've got by supplier? So where's your high value suppliers, the ones that you were spending a lot with, and then the categorization. So I mean, this relates directly back to the modeling that we talked about. So we go down to a quite granular level 3. I mean, the actual model hierarchy goes a bit deeper, but most of our customers, three levels is good enough. So as you can see, you begin to get a very, very discrete breakdown of categories of the spend within your supply chain. So in this particular case, management and business processes, human resources, and then down to different types of temporary and personnel services breaks that spend down. And you can click on that, and it will show you where your where the suppliers. So there's a sort of a globalized filtering mechanism within the platform, and this really this is the insight and starting point off the back of doing that large scale classification work that we've talked about. So from here is the ability to then drill down, actually manage, and be able to pull out and then report on insights around areas that you may want to change. So, one aspect of that, which I talked about around the AI aspect, is that classification on the fly. So, you may look at something and say, well, it's not in the right category, or you want to actually manually modify, elements of that processing hierarchy with the machine learning for your own purposes. We have a classification on the fly. So once you've filtered some data, as we've done here, I can then go into that COTF function, look at all of the transactions, ultimately then, select a category for those. And what you get is the category, all the way through, through the UNSPSC. And I'll just, so I just select one. I won't change it because it's the demo platform, so I'll probably get told off if I do. But ultimately, you can select a replacement category for that one that's been marked, and all of those transactions will be changed in real time in the platform. And it will also create a tagging master for use the next time that the data goes through the AI. So the next time you get a refresh of that data, it will take it and process it through. So very powerful feature, classification on the fly, and something that our customers use, quite regularly, as well. The things like payment analytics, and which I can just touch on. So this covers some of those extra role types that we talked about, personas in the platform. So one of the things that we realized that we could do was provide that ability to identify better payment terms and options for buyers, people who are our customers on the platform, that would essentially increase their and improve their cash management. And this is about potentially moving payment methods to other types of payment method, particularly moving things, say, onto a virtual corporate credit card, and away from EFT or check or VCA, which is the way that a lot of companies pay today. And what this does is it actually provides the ability to for a user to enter a range of parameters in terms of what sort of rebates do they get back from suppliers or from the bank based on use of certain payment mechanisms. How much does it cost to process a transaction when you have to pay an invoice? And so companies will generally know how much is their weighted average cost of capital. So if they're actually got sort of debt options out there for how they sort of fund suppliers, what are they paying for that, and then card days. So there's a range of parameters that once you in this particular side of the platform that allows our buyer to essentially filter down and get to I'll call it sort of a program where they can get the benefit of going to those suppliers, changing those payment terms, and realizing cash management benefits out of the platform as well. And then just, I guess, touching briefly on sustainability and risk. So we talked a little bit about this. So this is bringing in that third-party data. So things like, and we work with third parties like Dow Jones, Equifax, to bring in and allow you by, and the benefit here is, as I was saying a little bit earlier on, combine things like the spend data overlaid with risk so that you can better filter in and find out what are the areas where you've really got more, and bigger issues that perhaps need to be dealt with. Where are your high risks, versus the spend. So if it's a low spend and a high risk, maybe less of interest than something that's a high risk that you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on with the supplier in a particular category. Identifying, single points of failure with the supplier as well. So, that sort of thing. So this is that persona that, might be a compliance, against suppliers. So, yeah, so there's a range of different views that we've sort of built and, designed over time. People can build their own reports out of it so they can pull the data down. A lot of our customers utilize the data that we've sort of cleaned and categorized perhaps in other business processes. So they've got the ability to do that within here, and you can create a new report and select from any of that data that we have available inside the platform. So there's a range of attributes, allows you to create a sort of a filtered data report out of the platform, and save those reports and share them with others as well. So you can do that, and you can also do that from a filtering perspective as well. I'll jump into payment analytics. Again, you have we have something called an AIR report. I won't click it for the benefit of this, but what it does generate is the idea is for a lot of our customers, they'd like to be able to see automated insights. So you've got the data. It's a little bit of also helping our customers with what's next. What do I need to look at? And so an automated insight report can be used to provide a range of pre-filter criteria that generates an output. So a lot of customers want to be able to get high fidelity outputs in a PowerPoint format, out of the platform for use in presentations and also to drive programs. And it could be a card optimization program, etc. They do it. They can do that through here and through those facilities in the platform.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave, for walking us through. And just as the Is at the bottom of the tab. I saw as the savings tracker as well. I mean, that's obviously something where in real time we're able to see potential ROI. Is that right?
Yeah, so the idea, and again, as is ever with a product company, think things are evolving. The idea with the project tracker, and something we're actually working on now or looking at now, is utilizing the automated insights report to generate savings projects. So, we know that there are certain, if I take, for example, a pre-filtering exercise where you may be looking for a situation where you've got multiple suppliers in the same category, and clearly, you may be able to get unit price optimization by, if you've got 10 suppliers, say in a category, consolidating that down to one or two suppliers, may be a project. So, obviously what the savings tracker does is allows you to sort of embed and record a project, with a targeted benefit. So, for example, if we sort of said, we know that we could get the unit cost for something from $1 a unit to 50 cents a unit by going from 10 suppliers down to 2 strategic suppliers and renegotiating price, that will generate, based on the amount we're spending with them, a 5 or a 10% benefit. Then the idea with the savings tracker is that you can utilize this capability to record and manage that. And what we're doing over time is making this, essentially a time-based analysis mechanism is the idea, so that as the data is refreshed, you can actually see whether or not you're beginning to achieve that. So, the new historical data that comes through, if you've made those changes in your core ERP platforms, then you should be able to start seeing and realizing, seeing whether you're realizing those benefits. Have we consolidated down? Has the supplier count come from 10 to 2? Is the unit cost come down by 50%? What have you? So, yeah. So there's a range of things that we're now looking at to move that along as well, and explore. So yeah. It's if that helps.
That's brilliant. No, thank you so much for walking us through the demo here. And just in terms of a couple of last questions. Then I know before we talked a bit about the ROI of the solution and how we would calculate some of that. I'm just wondering, in terms of the pricing models that a organization might expect, is it done customized? Is it by certain attributes? What could we expect?
Good question. Yeah. So I guess I would say the typical. Typical profile of the customer, as I say, is we've probably found is, people that spend, $500 million a year up on suppliers or on their supply chain. From a pricing point of view, we have a model which incorporates what type of features that you want. So do you want basic spend visibility versus, do you want sustainability and risk? So those are all sort of essentially value add extras that we put into the platform. And it varies by the frequency of data refresh and, and the size of data that we get coming through. So, with the examples that I've given, typically we'll find that customers will spend perhaps 50 to 100K per year with us. On the platform, and that will get them, potentially monthly or quarterly freshes. If they want third-party sustainability and risk, then there's a slightly different charge for that to cover, the third-party data elements that we have. So yeah, I mean, it sort of varies, but I mean, I think we certainly find that we come in very price competitive compared to, a lot of larger platforms that would provide this service, particularly things like SAP and some of the others, at the ERP level. And so, yeah, so there's options and variability that the customer can get there. But I would sort of say, it's not atypical to have a customer that will be, spending between 50 and 100K per annum on a subscription with us to get the regular refreshes and capabilities.
Fantastic. And is there anything else you wanted to show on the demo here at all? Otherwise, you're welcome to stop sharing.
Sure. No, I think that's probably giving you a pretty good overview, hopefully. of it.
Oh, yeah,
So yeah, no, happy to stop there. And
no, that was great. No, and in terms of things that we can look forward to, I know you mentioned a couple of items on the roadmap there when we're talking about the projects tracking piece. Are there things that you're personally excited about that are coming out soon that you're able to share with us? Things we should be keeping our eyes on, perhaps.
Well, one of the things that we want to do is, we're looking at how we can do, inject a level of AI into our document processing, particularly around compliance. So, one of the things that you're looking for is the ability to reduce the human overhead associated with some of the processes that are currently manual. So, in our compliance platform, which I talked about, where you can create a supplier questionnaire, suppliers can upload documents, is injecting a level of features that both allows you to, automatically check the contents of that document for particular things. So it might be, say, an insurance certificate of currency, being able to check that the terms, meet minimum standards for the organization. So the organization, as the buyer, can say, well, we want minimum $10 million of liability cover, in any insurance related artifact that one of our suppliers uploads, and be able to automatically flag that without a human having to look at it and go through 25 pages of documentation. So there's elements of that. There's elements of really sort of introspecting through suppliers' historical data to sort of get a view on emerging risk. A lot of the stuff that we've done historically is retrospective, but you obviously want to move to a proactive, model where this supplier is actually okay, but based on trends and certain characteristics in the data, what we're finding is that these ones could become problematic. So a lot of the work that we do is around that. We're also looking at other methods that we can inject into what we do, particularly around classification, to just continually improve the first pass accuracy with a customer. So and I think that's probably where things like and I won't use chat GPT, but large language model type capabilities become relevant. So one of the things that we've realized is that there's probably a really good opportunity to use LLMs for what we call data enhancement. A lot of the times we get data from customers, particularly supplier records, that the data is actually in very poor quality, and as I was referring earlier, that's one of the things that the customers like about RobobAI, is that we really help clean things up and make it usable. Because if you don't have clean data, it's very hard to get great analytics or even use for things like AI and machine learning. I think people miss how important data quality is when it comes to actually provisioning some of those other things. So some of what we're seeing, and we've done some work recently looking at things like master data management, because we have skills in this area, is if we actually get records, say it's a supplier record or it's a materials record. So part of what we ingest is the materials that a company buys. There might be tens of thousands of things that a company buys as part of dealing with a supplier. Are those data records complete? And can we actually go out and use LLM capabilities to augment and enhance the quality of a record, fill gaps? Is the supplier correct? Is the part and numbers correct? To improve then the match rates of things inside the platform, as well, because part of the benefit that this leads back to is, and it relates to how people within a company buy things and ask for things to be purchased, is that you end up with a lot of duplication in the system because people can't find the material they're looking for, so they create a new one, but it was already there. So part of AI and these enhancements is, I think, LLMs, particularly for data that is publicly accessible, means that you can use those capabilities to sort of essentially improve the quality of data records that you've got as well. So we're doing a lot of looking in those areas too.
That's brilliant. And Dave, really appreciate your time coming on to walk us through the product, the solution. It's great to see the interface and some of the core benefits organizations can expect. Just wondering where our members can go to find out more. What's the website address? Are there other places they should be looking?
Well, I guess first port of call is robobai.com. We've got a range of white papers, all of the core capabilities and areas that I've talked about today, Thomas, are on there. You can request a live demo from us. We'd love to. We're always keen to take people through our products, whether that be spend analytics or the compliance platforms. And there's access to a range of some webinars and other materials that we've done in the past. You can also do just a general inquiry through there as well. So yeah, robobai.com is a good starting point.
Fantastic. And then if we were to, in one or two sentences, round off our conversation, are there any key takeaways that you think we should leave the audience with?
I think for me, utilizing these technologies saves time and money. I think one of the things, I think if you actually compare it to what it would cost you as an organization to carry out a lot of these activities, particularly with our client base, is you get a true benefit of a fast-moving model and organization, and capabilities that can give you clarity and insight very quickly. So by all means. This is where the area we like to play in, and we've been doing it with companies for quite a while. So yes, most certainly come and gain the benefits of our work and efforts over the past 7 years.
That's wonderful. Dave, wishing you all the best for the year ahead. Thanks so much for your time.
Thomas, thank you very much. Yeah, no, great to be here. Thank you very much.